See, we've come a long ways from where we used to be. Why? Because we're not remembering God. Even God's people are not remembering God. We need to remember now, and we need to remember God. It's now that we should do it, because if there's an urgency, and God shows us there's an urgency. It's who that we remember, and then He says, in the days of thy youth. There's a window. What He's saying is there's a window of opportunity that you and I have to serve the Lord. I do a lot of senior ministry. And let me tell you, those that are in their 80s and 90s, and we've got one man I minister to who's 101. These people cannot do anything. They can't go to church. They can't go out and knock doors. They can pray, but they are limited now in what they can do. Many of them remembered the Lord, remembered their Creator in the days of their youth, and they speak and they talk about what God used them to do and how they glorified the Lord in their lives. But so many do not remember the Lord now, because the idea and the mentality of today is I'll wait till tomorrow. I'll wait till I'm older. I'll serve the Lord. I'm not going to serve the Lord. I'm a teenager now. I'm going to sow my wild oats now. I'm not going to do anything now, because right now is the time to have fun. It's the time for me. It's the time for me to invest in me and to do all that I want to do, and then I'll give God what's left over, if there is anything left over. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth. Why? Because there's a window of opportunity to serve Him, and there's going to come a day where you're not going to have the ability to do what you thought you would do and you wanted to do, or you said you would do later. Look at the next verses. He says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the years draw nigh, or while the evil days draw nigh, nor the years draw near, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. You see, you mean there's going to come a day when I'm not going to enjoy the days of my life? I'm not saying that you can't enjoy being a senior, but you talk to the average white-haired person in this room here, and they will tell you. Well, they don't talk about it because they don't want to be complainers. But when they're home, and when they're going through a week, their aches and pains and things, sorrows that they go through, that you have no idea that they're going through. And they wish that they could do what they used to do. For God. They would be able to do more in their later years, but physically they can't. And they feel guilty. And they shouldn't feel guilty, because they're limited. And God, He'll take our limitation, He'll take our prayers, He'll take whatever we can do at that point in our life. And some of us are Johnny-come-lately. Hey, if you get saved when you're 70 or 80 or 90, and I've had a lot of people that have come to the Lord in that respect. And many of them are, have done what they could for the Lord. But how much better to do it when you're young? How much better to do it now? Why wait to serve God? Why wait to get saved? Why wait to do something that matters? Verse number 8, he writes, actually verse 7, he writes this. He says, then shall the dust, from verses 1 to 7, Solomon, we're not going to take the time, but Solomon goes through the dying process. And very poetically, and very majestically, as the Word of God is in so many places. He describes the process of death in very poetic terms. And then he says in verse number 7, then shall the dust, that's you and me, return to the earth as it was. Dust to dust. The Bible tells us in Genesis that God told that to Adam. For dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt return. And so when you and I return to dust, and we then are ushered into eternity, verse 7 says, the Spirit shall return unto God who gave it. You will either have a dead spirit to return to God and will wind up in an eternal hell, or you will have a living new spirit that God has regenerated that has been used to serve the Lord, that you can present to the Lord, and God will reward you according to that which you have done while you were alive. There is no other time to serve the Lord. After you have died, after you've gone, there's no more you can do for God. So it's what you do in your life while you're alive. In verse 8, he writes this. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, you'll find that statement over and over and over again. Here's why. Because in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon describes the transitoriness, the emptiness of this world. That everything in this life outside of what you do for God, everything that there is to do, everything you give yourself to, money, fortune, fame, everything, it's all vain. Spend your entire life building a house, and then when you die, somebody else moves in. You can live for 30 years and marry a wife and love her and cherish her, and then when you die, then she marries somebody else. And he wears your clothes, and he drives your car. Now back then they didn't have cars, but he rides your camel, okay, or he rides your horse. And he says it's just vanity. All the things. Solomon was given the opportunity, and why God did this, I don't know. But God gave him the opportunity to try everything there is to know in life. If you could ever read a book and ever hear somebody talk to you about how foolish and empty and worthless this world is, that when Jesus said, lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust doth corrupt and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt and where thieves don't break through and steal. Solomon would be the man to talk to if you could talk to anybody. He's already told you you're going down a pathway of emptiness. It's silly. And so many people have gone that way. In fact, Jesus called it the Broadway, because Broadway is a representation in almost every city in America and every city in the world. There's a Broadway somewhere. And the Broadway is the pathway that most everybody takes. But Jesus said, enter ye in at the strait gate. For broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. But straight is the way, and narrow is the gate that leadeth to life, and few there be that find it. Why? There's no urgency for God. We don't think of the now, we think of the later. We don't even focus on Him because it's all about us. We don't worry about that window of opportunity because we always think that, in our lives, we always think that we have plenty of time. It's never going to happen to us. We're going to live forever. We're not going to die. That's our mentality. And so we don't live like today was our last day. But it could be. At the end of your life, you're going to have something that will judge you. Verse 9, he writes, and moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. It's not talking about me, it's talking about Solomon. He was the preacher here. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words. Were they his own words? Were they some words of some philosopher? Were they the words of the media? Were they the words of the entertainment industry? What were the acceptable words that he sought to share? Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is a reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind with this, that ye may prove what is that good and what? Acceptable word of God. Old Testament, Solomon gave acceptable words. He said, this is what God, your Creator, has designed you for. This is why He has you on this planet. This is what He wants you to do with your life. This is how He wants you to glorify God. This is the way. Walk ye in it. And then verse 11, he writes, the words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. Want to guess who that shepherd is? He's called in the New Testament the Good Shepherd. Jesus. He's the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Further, by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books there is no end. Everybody writes books. And much studyiness is a weariness of the flesh. Verse 13, and this is the conclusion of it all. He says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter, the whole summation of life. And he drives a thought home. Fear God and keep His commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. It's interesting, this is Old Testament, but do you know what it relates to? Faith. Because if you fear God, you trust Him. And if you keep His commandments, you do His work. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace are you saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. For we are His workmanship, created unto Christ Jesus unto good works, His works. We put our faith in Jesus, and then we follow His works. Jesus left this statement in His great Sermon on the Mount. He said, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. Remember now thy Creator. Let's stand. Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. Our Father, we ask